Our relationship was getting tough. She shut down every time I tried to talk. I begged, explained, did everything to fix us. She wanted silence, so I gave her exactly that and walked away. My girlfriend says I talk too much during fights. She says I over-explain, that I won't let things go, that I'm exhausting. Sometimes I wonder if she's right, but then I remember all the times I stayed quiet and how that never fixed anything either. And now I feel like I'm stuck in a relationship where I either shut up and feel invisible or speak up and get told I'm impossible. We've been together for 5 years, lived together for 2. She recently started a new job, and a few weeks ago she told me she wanted to help with rent now that she had income. I was relieved. I've been carrying most of the weight for a while now, not just financially but emotionally too, if I'm being honest. She suggested opening a joint account. I was open to it, not thrilled but open. Felt like a step forward. Then yesterday, I asked her casually how much she expected to make this month. I wanted to calculate her share of the bills. Not because I'm a control freak, not because I'm nickel and diming her, but because I thought that's what we'd agreed on. We'd been talking about it for weeks. It seemed practical. Her face changed instantly, like I'd asked something shameful. She got tense, asked why I was asking. I said, well, it's the end of the month, so I figured we could square things up. Then I added, you could just transfer it to me for now, we can sort the joint account later. That's when she fully shut down. She snapped. So what, you need the money now? I said. No, I'm not asking for it right now. I just thought this would be easiest. But she was already done listening. You always do this, she muttered. Make me feel like I'm behind or doing something wrong. I told her honestly that wasn't my intention. I said, I just want to be transparent. We've talked about this. Why are you assuming the worst? She told me I had worded it badly, that I should have just waited, that I made it feel like a demand. I said, you're misunderstanding me? She said, why is it always me misunderstanding? Why don't you just say, I see your point of view, and move on? I froze at that, because she says that a lot. Just say you see my point, even when I don't, even when her point contradicts the reality I was living in 5 minutes earlier, even when it means lying about how I felt just to smooth things over. That's the pattern. One of us says something the other interprets differently. Misunderstanding happens. Okay, fine, that's normal. But instead of talking through it, she jumps to, you should have known better. And I'm left fumbling for words, desperate to clarify. I try to take the blame off both of us, call it what it is, a misfire, a misreading. She just doubles down. And suddenly I'm the one who should have known, should have worded it better, should have read the room. It's never just a mistake. It's always my mistake. She tells me I explain too much, that I don't know when to stop, that I drag the conversation out for no reason. But what she doesn't understand is, I have to explain. If I don't, she walks away believing I did something wrong. And I can't live with that, not because I need to be right, but because I need to be seen for what I was actually trying to do. Sometimes it takes hours to talk her down. Hours of slowly parsing every sentence, showing her the logic, the intention, the non-hostile truth behind whatever thing she's upset about. And eventually we agree. Okay, it was a misunderstanding. But even then, she'll still say, we could have ended this so much earlier if you just agreed with me when I said we think differently. So what was the point? Why do I bother explaining if she was never planning to meet me halfway? Why do I keep reaching for reconciliation when she just wants resolution without effort? I'm tired. And now her new issue with me is that I'm always the one who needs to talk everything out. That I need too much communication. That I make everything bigger than it is. But I don't want to make this our normal. I don't want a relationship where every argument ends with her believing she's right and me biting my tongue to keep the peace. I want to feel like my perspective matters. That my words land somewhere, not just float off into a void where she gets to rewrite the story later. I've brought this up to her gently. I told her I don't think it's healthy that she refuses to actually sit with me and resolve things. That she gets frustrated the second I try to explain myself. That she wants space when what we need is connection. She told me I'm just too intense. That I make her feel cornered. That sometimes she wishes I'd just let her cool down instead of pushing for a fix. But if I don't push, nothing gets fixed. It just gets swept under the rug, and then the rug gets heavier and heavier, and eventually we're both tripping over it every time we try to talk. So now I'm sitting here wondering, do I just stop trying? Do I learn to shut up and let her feel what she feels, even if it's based on a version of me that doesn't exist? Or do I keep explaining until I lose her completely? TLDR. My girlfriend says I argue too much and over-explain things. I think I'm just trying to resolve miscommunication. But she wants me to say I see your point, even when I don't. Am I the problem? Or is this just two incompatible communication styles? We met in a cafe like some rom-com cliché. I was reading a book I probably didn't understand well enough to justify pretending I was absorbed in it, and she asked me what I thought about the author. That led to a 2-hour conversation and a shared muffin, and I remember leaving the place buzzing like I'd just brushed up against someone magnetic. Back then, everything felt easy. That's how it always starts, right? She was smart and self-contained. I liked that. She didn't overshare. She wasn't loud. She didn't chase attention. She had this calm about her, this kind of subtle confidence that I found grounding. When I talked, she listened. Or I thought she did. And I'm the opposite. I talk too much. Always have. I overthink. I narrate my feelings like I'm trying to keep the story of me from getting lost. I think that's why I explain things, because silence to me feels like abandonment. Like if I don't say it out loud, it didn't happen. Or worse, someone else will fill in the blanks with something false. She never minded at first. She'd smile and nod, and sometimes she'd touch my arm and say, "I love how you think about things." I used to write little letters and leave them on her pillow. Nothing dramatic, just reflections, sometimes apologies, sometimes gratitude. She told me once, "I've never had someone put so much thought into me." But somewhere along the way, that changed. After we moved in together, year 3, the shift began. Subtle at first, my over-explaining became exhausting. My reflection became dwelling. My careful words, the ones I crafted like peace offerings, became manipulative, like I was trying to corner her into agreement instead of offering her a bridge. That was never the goal. I never needed to be right. I needed to be understood. But I think she started seeing every conversation like a debate. And in debates, someone has to win, and someone has to lose. She hated losing. I remember our first real fight. I'd forgotten to take the trash out before work, and she made a comment that felt sharper than usual. "It's not about the trash, it's about you never listening." That hit me hard, because I do listen. I just mess up sometimes. So I tried to explain, tried to say I'd been tired, that it wasn't intentional, that I'd take care of it now, and set a reminder next time. She cut me off. "You always have an excuse." That was the first time I heard that word, always. It's a weapon disguised as memory. Like one small thing suddenly becomes evidence of a pattern you didn't know you were creating. I remember thinking, is this really about the trash? Or is this the beginning of something bigger? Spoiler, it was the beginning. Since then, we've had the same fight 100 different ways. The trigger changes, but the pattern doesn't. It always starts with something small, me wording something wrong, her reading something into it, and then, boom, we're off. I try to clarify, but she's already retreated. I reach across the distance, but she takes it as a challenge. And suddenly, I'm the one who won't let it go. She says I talk in circles, that I wear her down, that I have to dissect every disagreement like I'm writing a thesis. I told her once I'm not trying to win, I'm trying to stay connected. She rolled her eyes. The thing is, she wants what she calls peace. But her version of peace is absence. No talking, no engagement, just space. Which sure is fine when we're cooling off. But when space becomes avoidance, it stops being peaceful. It becomes distance. It becomes loneliness, even when we're in the same room. I used to leave her alone when she asked. I'd sit in the kitchen staring at my untouched dinner while she scrolled on her phone in bed. Then hours later, she'd act like nothing happened. Like we hadn't just spent an entire night not speaking because of a fight neither of us truly understood. Eventually, I stopped waiting. I'd knock softly on the door and say, "Can we talk?" Sometimes she'd say no, sometimes she'd sigh and let me in, only to listen for 30 seconds before saying, "This is exactly what I didn't want to do right now." That's when I started thinking maybe it was me. Maybe I was too needy. Maybe I expected too much emotional engagement. Maybe some people just need more silence. But then I realized she never offers understanding, only escape. And I'm the one always trying to build the bridge back to each other. It's not just about fights either. Last year when my dad had surgery, I was a wreck. I told her I was scared, that I didn't know how to handle it. She said I'm sure it'll be fine. Let me know how it goes, and went back to her laptop. No hug, no sitting beside me, No check-in the next day. I didn't bring it up for weeks until it ate a hole in me. When I finally told her I felt alone, she said I didn't know what you needed. I said I needed you. She said, that's not fair. You expect me to read your mind. So I started spelling everything out. Every emotion, every fear, every hesitation. And even that became too much. It's like I'm being asked to be small enough not to overwhelm her, but big enough to absorb all the space she won't step into. I tried to explain this imbalance. She told me I make problems where there aren't any. Maybe she's right. Maybe I do look too closely at things. But how else am I supposed to know if we're okay? How else do I spot the cracks before they become chasms? Her answer is you don't. You trust. You let it go. But how do you trust someone who won't sit with you in the dark? It's not like she's cruel. She's never yelled at me, never called me names. She buys me coffee, sometimes sends me cute memes. We laugh, we cuddle. There are good moments. But they float above the tension like fragile bubbles. One misunderstanding, and they pop. The worst part is, I've stopped telling friends about our fights. I know what they'd say. You need to stop overthinking, or she sounds cold, or maybe you're just not compatible. I hate that word, compatible. Like people are puzzle pieces instead of choices. I don't want to give up. I just want to be met halfway. I want a relationship where disagreements are conversations, not landmines. Where I don't feel like every clarification is an interrogation. Where we can both be wrong sometimes. Where apology isn't code for surrender. I want to feel safe asking, did I say something wrong without bracing for impact? Is that too much? Because lately it feels like it is. It happened again. Like it always does. A small conversation turned into a misunderstanding, and that misunderstanding turned into a fight, and that fight turned into silence, and I ended up in the living room with the lights off, wondering how something so minor could leave me feeling like I'd just been emotionally mugged. It started with rent. That's it. That's all it was. She had just gotten her first paycheck from her new job, nothing massive, just a part-time contract gig. We had agreed when she got the offer that once she started working, we'd share expenses more evenly. She said she wanted to help, said it made her feel like a partner, not a burden. I believed her. So near the end of the month, I asked her how much she'd made. Not like an accountant, just calmly. I wanted to estimate her share so I could cover the rest and update the spreadsheet I use for bills. It's something I've always done, track everything, be transparent, fair. It wasn't accusatory, it wasn't desperate. But the moment I brought it up, her face shut down. That expression, lips pressed together, eyes that stopped meeting mine. I felt it instantly. That shift. The signal that says something is wrong, but you have to guess what. She asked, so what, you need it now? I said, no, I was just trying to get ahead of it before the weekend. I figured you could transfer it, that's all. It's easier than setting up the joint account right now. She narrowed her eyes like I'd just accused her of owing me thousands. You said we'd wait until I had a stable income. Why are you asking now? I'm not asking, I said. I'm just talking. I thought this was what we agreed on. I feel like you're pressuring me, she replied. And I could already feel it beginning. That rush of frustration in my chest. That moment where you realize you're having two different conversations in two different languages. So I tried to backpedal. Okay, I get how it came off. I'm not trying to pressure you seriously. I don't need the money now. I was just being practical. That's it. But her arms were crossed and her voice had already gone quiet. You always say that. You always act like it's a practical thing when you're really just upset with me. I froze. What? Upset with you for what? She shrugged. I don't know. For not offering soon enough? For not reading your mind? That's what she always says. You expect me to read your mind. And every time she says it, I feel like I've been accused of some crime I didn't know I was committing. No, I said gently. I wasn't expecting anything. I said something clumsily. I clarified. I'm trying to be open. You should have known I'd take it that way, she said, as if I could have predicted her interpretation before I even spoke. That's not fair, I replied. You're allowed to feel what you feel, but so am I. And if we don't talk about it, how are we supposed to stop this from happening again? That's when she rolled her eyes. You always want to talk it till the end. I hate that sentence. Because what's the alternative? Just leave it. Let the misunderstanding sit between us like a fog neither of us will walk through. I'm trying to resolve it, I said. That's not talking it till the end. That's what communication is. She stood up then. You think your way is the only way. You think talking makes everything better, but sometimes it makes things worse. You make things worse when you do this. I stared at her like she'd slapped me. I make things worse. Because I want clarity. Because I can't stomach pretending everything is fine when we're both walking around with emotional paper cuts. I don't want to fight, I said, voice low. Then, don't, she snapped, walking into the bedroom and closing the door. And just like that, the fight was over. Not resolved. Just done. For her. For me, it was still burning in my brain like static. I sat on the couch for an hour, then walked over to the closed door. I knocked. She didn't answer. I knocked again. Can we just talk? Not argue, just talk. Silence. I went back to the couch, slept there that night. Not because I was angry, but because I knew if I lay beside her, I'd start trying again. And I was too exhausted to be rejected one more time. The next day, she acted like nothing happened. She made coffee, asked if I wanted toast, played music while getting dressed. It was like she'd rewound to the part of our relationship where nothing had gone wrong. But I hadn't. I was still stuck in the middle of the conversation we never finished. I didn't bring it up. I couldn't. That's part of the problem, too. Timing. She says I always pick the wrong moment to talk, when she's tired or when she's just trying to relax or when it's already over. But the truth is, there's never a right time, because she doesn't want to go there at all. I did bring it up 2 nights later, carefully. I waited until we were both in bed, lights off. I asked, "Can I say something without it becoming a thing?" She sighed. Not angry, just tired. "Sure," I said. That night, with the rent thing, I felt like I was trying to solve a miscommunication and you were trying to end the conversation. And that made me feel like the bad guy just for bringing it up. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I just want peace." And I get that. I want peace too. But what she means is avoidance. What she wants is the surface to stay still no matter what's happening underneath. I said peace without resolution isn't peace. It's just quiet resentment. She didn't answer. And then came the sentence I've heard before, the one that stings every time. You think what you think, I think what I think. We don't have to agree. It sounds harmless, even reasonable. But what it really means is, your truth isn't mine, and I don't want to explore the difference. I said, so every disagreement just becomes a stalemate. She said, it could have been over so much earlier if you just accepted that. Accepted what? That my feelings didn't matter, that clarity isn't worth the effort. I tried one more time. I just don't want a relationship where we avoid hard conversations. She turned her back to me. Maybe we're just too different. And there it was, the silent threat. The suggestion that if I didn't adapt, didn't stop being this way, I might lose her. I lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling, wondering when I became the villain in the story I thought we were writing together. Wondering how many more times I'd try to cross a bridge she refused to walk toward. I'm not perfect. I do talk too much. I do over-explain. But I do it because I want to get back to us. Not to win, not to punish, but to connect. And lately it feels like connection is the last thing she wants. A few days later, I brought up couples counseling. I said it might help to have someone neutral in the room, someone to help us understand each other better. She looked at me like I'd suggested inviting a stranger to live with us. She said, I'm not doing therapy just so you can prove you're right. I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was so absurd. That's not what therapy is, I said. It's not about right or wrong. It's about hearing each other. She shook her head. I don't need therapy. You just need to stop pushing. And then she left the room. And I sat on the edge of the bed, shoulders heavy, wondering if this is how relationships end. Not with betrayal or screaming or infidelity, but with one person standing there holding all the words while the other one walks away. I don't remember exactly what day it was. That's how numb I had gotten. It was a Tuesday, I think. I'd come home from work a little early and saw her on the couch, headphones in, watching some show I didn't recognize. She didn't look up, didn't pause it, just raised one hand lazily in acknowledgement, like I was a guest she barely knew. It wasn't mean, it wasn't cruel, it was indifferent. And that was worse. I stood there in the hallway holding a grocery bag in one hand and a tightening in my chest in the other. I'd brought home her favorite chocolate. A peace offering without a conflict, a gesture without a context, just something to prove to myself that I still knew how to care. I placed it on the kitchen counter without a word. She didn't notice. Later that night, we were both in bed, not talking. I couldn't sleep. My mind was doing that thing again, looping, trying to solve an emotional equation with missing variables. I stared at the ceiling and wondered what version of me she thought she was lying next to. And then softly I asked, "Do you even like me anymore?" She turned her head just slightly. "Why would you ask that?" And I said, "Because I feel like I have to beg just to be part of your world. I feel like I'm always wrong, always too much. I don't remember the last time you looked at me like you saw me. Not a problem. Not a project, just me." She was quiet for a while. Then she said, "You make everything so heavy. All the time. I can't breathe around you anymore." There it was. She didn't say she didn't love me. She didn't say she wanted to break up. But she said that, and it landed like a stone in my stomach. I didn't respond. I couldn't. Because what do you say when someone tells you that your presence feels like suffocation? I got up and went to the bathroom, stared at my face in the mirror. I looked older than I remembered. Tired, hollow, like someone who keeps checking his emotional bank account, expecting a balance that's never been there. And I realized something in that moment, something I'd been pushing down for months. She doesn't want us to work. She wants me to stop making it hard for her. She wants the version of me who lets things go, who doesn't ask for emotional intimacy, who takes silence as stability. And I've been trying to be that version over and over, trimming pieces off myself to make her comfortable. But there's nothing left to trim. When I came back to bed, she was already asleep or pretending to be. I lay down quietly. I didn't cry. I didn't speak. I just stared at the ceiling again, but this time, my mind didn't loop. This time I knew. The next day I didn't say much. Neither did she. We moved around each other like ghosts who once shared a life. I think she could feel it too, something cracking under the surface. That night she came into the kitchen and leaned against the fridge. Said, "You've been quiet." I nodded. "Yeah." "Are you mad?" "No." She waited like she was hoping I'd fill in the silence like I always do. But I didn't. Eventually she asked, "What are you thinking?" And for once I told the whole truth. "I'm thinking I don't recognize us anymore. I'm thinking I've been trying so hard to keep this together that I didn't realize how far apart we already are. I'm thinking I don't want to keep having the same argument for the rest of my life." Her eyes didn't change. That's what broke me more than anything, how not surprised she looked. She crossed her arms. "So what? You're giving up?" I shook my head. "No, I'm done chasing. There's a difference." She didn't reply, just turned away and walked out of the kitchen. I sat down at the table alone with the weight of what I'd said and felt something I hadn't felt in months, peace. Not the fake kind, she chased the real kind. The kind that comes from finally letting go of something that's been burning your hands. I haven't moved out. Not yet. But I've started looking. We still live in the same apartment, still sleep in the same bed, still go through the motions. But we're not fooling each other anymore. She doesn't reach for me. I don't over-explain. We're both quieter now. There are fewer fights. But it's not because things are better. It's because we both know we've reached the point where words won't save us. And maybe that's the saddest part of all. That for all my explaining, for all her silence, neither of us could find a language the other could live in. We didn't break up with shouting. There were no slammed doors, no ultimatums. It just stopped. Stopped being kind. Stopped being safe. Stopped being us. Some endings don't come with a final conversation. They arrive in the slow disintegration of everyday things, like when she stopped asking me how my day was, or when I stopped making coffee for 2 in the morning, like the way her toothbrush disappeared from the holder a full week before she told me she'd found a new place. I didn't ask where. She didn't offer. We sat down together one night not because we planned it, but because we both happened to end up in the living room at the same time. She was scrolling on her phone. I was folding laundry. "I think we should call it," I said. She didn't look up right away, but when she did, there was no shock in her eyes, just a softness. maybe even relief. Yeah, she said. Me too. There was silence, but for once it didn't hurt. I think we both realized at the same time that we'd been holding on out of habit, not hope. We talked logistics. Who gets what? Who moves out first? It was civil. Muted. We were so good at not yelling. Too good, maybe. Yelling would have meant there was still heat left. 2 days later, I helped her carry boxes to her sister's car. She said thank you. I said take care. She didn't hug me. I didn't ask. After she drove off, I stood in the empty doorway for a while, unsure what I was supposed to feel. Grief, freedom, loneliness. I felt all of it, and none of it. But I didn't feel regret. That surprised me, because I had loved her. Deeply, messily, honestly. And for a long time I thought love was enough. That if I explained myself clearly, listened patiently, tried hard enough, she'd meet me halfway. But love without understanding becomes labor, and love without effort becomes a weight you carry alone. Now that she's gone, I've noticed something strange. The apartment is quiet, yes, but it's a different kind of quiet. Not the stifling kind. Not the kind that dares you to speak and punishes you when you do. It's stillness. It's calm. I talk to myself more now. Out loud. It used to annoy her, but now it feels like I'm keeping myself company, and I'm not ashamed of that. I deleted our shared calendar, took her off the Wi-Fi, changed the groceries I buy. Not out of spite, just reclaiming the space, making it mine again. Sometimes I think about the last big fight, the one over rent of all things. How small it started, how quickly it became something else. Something unspoken but heavy, like a truth we'd both known and didn't want to say. I realize now I wasn't trying to win those arguments. I was trying to be seen, to not feel crazy for feeling hurt, to not be blamed for needing clarity when she needed silence. I know now that was never going to work. I've started writing again. Not for anyone else, just for me. Letters I'll never send. Reflections. Conversations I wish we'd had. I don't write them hoping she'll come back. I write them to remind myself that I didn't stop trying. And that matters. Because when it ended, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was just done. Not because I gave up. Because I finally knew that trying alone isn't the same as growing together. And I deserve to grow.